Ourselves to order. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes from the previous meeting. Anyone have any addition, questions, corrections? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved, Madam President.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of accepting the minutes, please raise your hands. All right, minutes are accepted. Do we have any update from the Inspector General's office?
No, there is a summary that's in front of everybody for anybody to review. If they have any questions, please just let me know.
Thank you. All right, next up, review of pending cases. We still had some cases from Board Member Strickland's subcommittee, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Strickland.
Thank you. This one is case number 1475. On September 28th, 2023, the City of Columbus Department of Inspector General received a complaint alleging excessive force and police misconduct via the Columbus Department Inspector General hotline. The complaint alleged that on September 23rd, 2023, officers came to her home to serve an arrest warrant and she sustained 2 broken ribs, a concussion, and a dislocated shoulder during the incident. After the review of the evidence, the investigation found no evidence to corroborate or substantiate the allegation that the complainant sustained the alleged injuries resulting from her interaction with the officers. Additionally, the Department Inspector General never received any information from the complainant that substantiated her alleged injuries. Therefore, the Department Inspector General recommends this allegation be closed with a finding of unfounded. It's a very lengthy case here that walks through a number of aspects of the evidence, but our review committee didn't have any particular issues with the actual findings of the Department of Inspector General in this case. And I just want to make sure our committee didn't have additional comments on this particular with 1475. Excellent. So in that particular, I'm going to do the motions all together. Can I do that? I think so.
That's fine.
So the next case number is 1537. This is a case where the Department Inspector General received a complaint of misconduct via the hotline. Hold on one second. I just want to make sure this is right here. Via the hotline on October 9th, 2023. The complainant alleged that on September 29th, he called into the CPD Domestic Violence Unit to speak with a detective who wrote the investigation report regarding a domestic situation between him and the mother of his child, which took place on July 8th, 2023. The assigned detective was out of the office, and the complainant reported that he spoke with another detective who answered the phone and was rude to him. Additionally, the complainant alleged that he asked the detective for his name and badge number, but he refused to provide the information. The complainant also alleged that he made a second attempt to call the assigned detective on October 5th, 2023, and the same detective who he had previously spoken with answered the call and again refused to provide his name and badge number and was rude and hung up on him. The investigation revealed that the detective spoke with the complainant on several occasions, but found no evidence to support the complainant's alleged incident occurred on September 29, 2023. Therefore, the Department Inspector General recommends that the allegation 1 be closed of unfounded. The investigation also found no evidence to support the complainant's allegation that the detective who took the complainant's call would not give his name and badge number. That allegation is also be recommended with a close of unfounded. And the investigation found no evidence to support that the same detective who answered the complainant's call refused to provide his name and badge number on a separate call. And that is also closed with a finding of unfounded. And the allegation that the detective was rude and hung up was also closed with a finding of unfounded. So in all of the allegations for case number 1537, the recommendation is unfounded. Our subcommittee didn't have any particular issues with that case, but just want to make sure if anybody on our team had additional comments.
I have a question. What evidence did the IG review?
What evidence did the IG review in this case? They reviewed Well, the investigation consisted of the complainant's statement, a phone call with the sergeant and a detective with the DV unit, statements from 2 officers within the DV unit, and a detective who was formerly assigned to the DV unit, preliminary investigation reports, computer-aided dispatch reports, and CPD policies and procedures. And on the review of that evidence, they found finding them unfounded.
Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, we're going to move on to the next, which is 1643. This is an allegation of police misconduct involving officers with CPD. The complaint alleged that CPD officers responded to a domestic violence incident, and the suspect was only charged with a misdemeanor for striking her grandchild in the face, who now has a black eye. In addition, the complainant alleged that Franklin County Children's Services was not notified or called out to the scene. The Department Inspector General investigation consisted of a review of the body-worn camera footage, computer-aided dispatch event chronology report, the unit history report, an interview with the complainant and involved CPD officers, a review of the Franklin County Municipal Court arrest report, email correspondence from Franklin County Children's Services to assigned officers, and CPD crime scene photos of the victim's injuries. For allegation 1, the investigation determined that the officer's application of charges was accurate and are supported by CPD policy and procedures. Therefore, it is recommended that this allegation of the assessment of a misdemeanor charge against the officers be closed as exonerated, and we can get into that. As it pertains to allegations 2, the investigation determined that the officers made notification to Franklin County Children's Services, which was within CPD policy and procedures. Therefore, it is recommended this allegation of not notifying and/or calling FCCS out to scene against the officers be closed as unfounded. And so as it relates to, I just want to be clear, as it relates to allegation 1, during the allegation of someone striking the 10-year-old grandson, the complainant believes that the charges against the individual should have been a felony and not a misdemeanor because the victim is 10 years old. And then the Columbus Department Inspector General did an emergency communication center request to obtain information. After a review of the body-worn camera footage revealed that the officer obtained statements from the aunt of the victim, the mother of the victim, and the individual who allegedly struck the child. The aunt explained to the officer that there's been a long history of domestic violence, and the officer completed an interview with the minor child, who confirmed that the child was punched in the eye. The officer also did an interview of the alleged perpetrator here and placed him under arrest for assault and domestic violence. And then that officer contacted CPD Domestic Violence Felony Assault Unit regarding the information obtained, and then asked whether or not Children's Services needed to be contacted. They were advised by the DV Felony Assault Unit of the appropriate charges and advised that if the mother was present and was willing and able to care for her child, FCCS did not need to be contacted to come to the scene in that particular incident. The officer was advised of the misdemeanor charges, and then that FCCS would also be notified by detectives for follow-up regarding the DV incident. And so based on their review, not only of the interview, but also of the body-worn camera footage with the officers, it is consistent with the statement given to the Columbus Department of Inspector General. So there were unfounded recommendations on allegation 2, which was related to not notifying Children's Services, and then allegation 1, which was related to the actual application of charges, is closed as exonerated, as they determined the officers' applications were accurate. Any comments or questions regarding that case? Great. Okay, next up, we have 1682. This is where the complainant made two allegations here. One, he alleged that he was improperly treated by the officer who stopped him for a traffic violation. And two, he alleged the officer racially profiled him. The Department of Inspector General investigation consisted of a review of body-worn camera footage, cruiser video system data, computer-aided dispatch, and a telephone interview of the complainant, in-person interview of the involved officer, and a review of the applicable CBD directives. The investigation found that the officer did not engage in a proper treatment against the complainant during the traffic stop as alleged. No evidence was found where the officer engaged in bias-based profiling prior to making the traffic stop on the complainant. Therefore, it is recommended as allegations 1 and 2 against the officer be closed as unfounded. Any comments from our review committee? Or questions from the board?
I have one. I think on this particular one right here, the investigator's name was not on the case. And I think that, that we should have known who the investigator of the case was.
Yep, and that,
So we have went to a new format in which we no longer put the investigators' names on the reports. The report strictly comes straight from the office, and that has a lot to do with, I would say, a lot of things that are being put on social media, which is affecting my investigators by intimidating them and putting their names out there, their pictures, and I would say, you know, I signed up for this, so I don't mind my name being out there, but I really want to protect my investigators because the investigations that that are conducted are reviewed by me and approved. So that's the reason why we've actually decided to remove their names from the investigations.
one of the questions, I think it's just, thank you for that response. Just if you could maybe explain just kind of a high-level overview of the current process. I mean, we're kind of aware, but just so that folks know the process that goes through with the set of investigators who review a case, and it goes through your team. Just want to give a nice high-level overview of that.
Okay, so all investigations that are done goes through, once the investigations are completed, we have 2 supervisors in place, and each supervisor has a team. So once the investigations are done, they actually go through a peer review among themselves. They also meet weekly and discuss the cases, which is kind of good. It allows them to share the information among some of the cases that are being done. But the review goes through the supervisors. Once the supervisor finishes their review, then it goes to the deputy inspector for his review. And then once he's done with his review, then that review comes to me. I do the final review, and then once we're done with it, then we submit the review to the Civilian Review Board for you to have that final review and approval. But it does go through layers of review, and that's not just reviewing the reports, it's reviewing the documents, it's reviewing whatever audio, it's reviewing body cam. I mean, it's an extensive review just to make sure that everything is accurate and thorough and reflects not only what the complaint is, but also reflects whatever allegations we're looking at and whatever policies and procedures that we're investigating to see whether or not there was a violation.
Excellent, thank you.
I have one more question. Going back to the question that I previously asked you about the investigator's name not being on the case, is this something that's going to be policy for all investigators, or is it just for some investigators?
Oh, no, this is going forward. This is something that we implemented in February. So what you might find is some cases that still have the names on there were probably cases that were submitted prior to us going to this new format. In February is when we went to the new format. And then we had some additional training. So going forward, you won't see the investigators' names on the case. But what we do want is for the board to really just kind of focus on like the investigation and see whether or not, we do know who the investigators are. So we will definitely monitor if there is an issue or something that we see consistently with an investigator, but going forward, we just don't have their name on the final report that's submitted.
Thank you for that. And so you had mentioned that there's been kind of statements on social media and others about individual investigators. Maybe you don't have to elaborate too much on that, but could you maybe explain in the sense of, I don't know, in terms of whether the city, how you handle that as your office aside? There's this approach. Is there other efforts being made in terms of just getting clarity over the office and what's happening in terms of maybe statements that are made on social media?
The thing that I can tell you is that anything that's made on social media, we are aware of it and we do monitor it. But unless the comments or things that are made on social media is something that affects a policy or procedure, at this point, it's nothing that we can do about it. But we are aware, we are monitoring it, and then if there becomes something that we're able to do, we will make sure that we can do something. We have actually also talked with the attorney's office to see if there's some other avenues in which we can pursue. But at this point in time, we feel the best way to pursue that is to remove the investigator's name from the report to kind of provide that layer of protection of their name and face being brought out there.
Excellent. Thank you. And then part of this, just as clarity, one of the statements that happened earlier as a process that we decided on as a board is in terms of when we're reviewing out these cases, not revealing the names of the officers or the complainants in the cases. Now, that can be found via public records request, but that was a decision that was made as well. So it's consistent with that broader practice. The next case number, any other questions on that particular case? I'm not going to go to the next one. I'm going to explain this one. Sorry about that. This is case number 1682. This is about the engaging in bias-based profiling. Any questions or further statements here? The only thing I would say is, I think what we've said previously, which is it would be good as we think about this database of getting information about particular complaints, whether or not there have been consistent allegations like this against a particular officer, because in isolation, the evidence here, it seems like that this particular officer did not engage in improper treatment, but want to keep track of whether or not this is a pattern or not. But based on the review, our review committee agreed with the finding of unfounded for this particular case. All right. Next up, we have case number 1849. This was where the complainant stated on December 5th, 2023, around 4:30 p.m., a disturbed individual was causing, a scene and yelling in the area of 500 South Front Street. Private security was working in the area, called 911 multiple times, and police failed to respond. The complainant also alleged the individual had multiple felony warrants, and she believed the individual to be dangerous. The complainant stated when the individual crossed the road into another precinct, officers came immediately and arrested him. After review of the evidence, which includes that there was no body-worn camera footage attached to this incident. The investigation revealed an officer did respond to an area at a later time. However, due to there being other higher priority calls for service, this call was one of the service calls that was not immediately assigned. The officer's response was within CPD policy and procedure. Therefore, it is recommended the allegation of police failing to respond to numerous calls for assistance be closed as unfounded. This was a particular case where it talks about there being multiple calls for assistance. The first call was received by 911 dispatch at 4:39. The final call for assistance was received by 911 at 5:04. The report also found that the officer was dispatched at 6:26 and the event closed at 6:27. No body-worn camera was available for this incident. On December 20th, 2023, the Department Inspector General did a follow-up call with the complainant, the complainant said that she was not a witness to the incident, but received information from the security guard who was employed with the company nearby. The complainant said that this was more of a concern than a complaint due to slow response times from CPD, the staffing of police officers in that precinct. And she felt this posed a problem for the businesses in the area. She informed Department Inspector General that as a business owner and a former victim of break-in, her employees are afraid. She also stated this disturbed individual can be dangerous, and CPD has known to take up to 4 hours to respond to calls. They reviewed the traffic call. The Department Inspector General reviewed the traffic call with the Emergency Communications Center and determined that the officer added himself to the 1016 disturbance run at 6:26. He also advised dispatch that he drove through the area and subsequently was cleared by dispatch at 6:27. There was an interview with one of the officers regarding this allegation, and that the officer stated that he was familiar with the call and disturbance, but he was not dispatched to the run. He stated he'd been working overtime in that precinct. 11 during second shift was called to assist on high priority runs. Based on this information, the determination was found that there was no allegation of action taken / not taken, and be closed with a finding of unfounded in this particular case. Any comments? Were there any comments from our review committee about this particular case, or questions from the board about this case? The only thing I think came up on our review committee is just about, I think this goes into some of the response times and the questions around working with dispatch and working with CPD and how that process works. I think some of that has been alluded to in previous questions, and perhaps is something we can add in terms of a set of conversations with how processes work when there are higher priority calls that are occurring in a given situation. But as far as this particular case, our review committee found no, or agreed with the recommendation of the Department Inspector General. All right. Those are the review of the cases for committee number 2 from those March assigned cases. So I would actually make a motion to approve, move forward the recommendation of the Department Inspector General for case numbers 23, 1475, 1537, 1643, 1682, and 1849.
Okay. Second, Dr. Forth? Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions or discussion?
I do have one thing. I think in that particular case, it was said that, again, there was no BWC footage available. So again, that goes back to that thing we've been saying all along, about the possible policy change to where, whether they're off-duty police officers or whatever, they still should be required to have BWC.
Any other comments or questions or discussion? All in favor of accepting all recommendations for 1475, 1537, 1643, 1682, and 1849? Please raise your hands. Any opposed on any of those case numbers? Any abstentions? All right, motions carry. Thank you. Turning it over to Board Member Nathan for March case readouts.
This is case number 2023-1506. The complainant alleged misconduct by a CPD officer as a result of a videotapes of the officer having consensual sex with a Kroger employee on at least 9 separate occasions inside a Kroger store utility room closet. On all occasions, the officer can be observed in his uniform. The CPD officer was serving 2 days a week as a Kroger special duty officer. DIG found that the officer engaged in numerous violations of CPD policy, including conduct unbecoming of an officer, and so the allegation of misconduct was sustained, and our committee agreed. Dr. Jones, do you recall there was also the allegation regarding him sending photos that was found outside of DIG's jurisdiction?
Yes, and we had asked a question about that. Do you remember?
There was, I'll try to remember. I know with this, because of the jurisdiction and the timeline, we were able to look at some of the information and apply it to the guidelines and the time frame. So I think some of the information we didn't have, like photos, we may not have had time stamps or dates on there or be able to validate. So that was one of the reasons why I think we commented, as some of the information was included and some was not able to be included.
Okay. I was trying to find, because I know you responded to us in the email. I was trying to find the email with the exact response. Oh, you have it? Okay. Yes, please. Yeah, it was correct. The photos exceeded the 90-day from the point at which they have received the allegation, and that's CVA Article 8, Section 8.12A. So thank you for that.
I can do it the same way. Member Strickland handled his and handled them all at the end. Do you have a preference, Chairperson?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. This is case number 1668. There were several allegations by the complainant. Complainant alleged that officers responded to her home and watched her 19-year-old daughter vandalize her property inside and outside the home and her vehicle, and advised the daughter that it was okay to vandalize the complainant's property. Complainant also alleged that the officers told her to shut up and go into the other room, and the complainant alleged that the officers refused to provide her with their badge numbers. And as a result of reviewing body-worn camera from a number of different officers, the CAD report, and interviewing both the complainant and the officers, the Department of Inspector General found that these allegations were unfounded with respect to the officers watching the 19-year-old vandalize, or telling the 19-year-old that it was okay to vandalize, telling the complainant to shut up, and also refusing to give her their badge numbers. And so the Department of Inspector General found these allegations, or concluded that the allegations were unfounded with respect to these allegations. We agreed. So that's one motion to accept the Inspector General's findings. A second motion has to do with an additional finding by the Inspector General that in reviewing the body-worn camera, one of the officers did use profanity and exhibited unprofessional behavior in his response. And so the Department of Inspector General recommended a finding of sustained regarding this officer's language as being a violation of CPD policy and procedure. We agreed, And so we're having a separate motion on that regarding the officer's use of profanity. This is 2023 case, 2023-1807. This involved an allegation that the CPD officers failed to properly investigate possible child abuse by declining to speak to children or to look at them, and allegedly referred to one of the children as a problem child. The case arose from the officers arriving at an elementary school in response to a domestic violence complaint by one of the elementary school employees. They spoke with the school counselor. They also spoke with a therapist and I think one of the other staff, let's see, social worker, excuse me. So they spoke with the school counselor, the therapist, and the social worker, all of whom had spoken to the children. The staff believed that the children did show signs of abuse by the mother, but the staff recommended to the police officers that they act as a go-between with the children so as not to threaten or intimidate the children. The officers then went to the mother's house. This is all on BWC. They went to the mother's house, told her that discipline is fine, but abuse is not. At no time did they refer to her child as a problem child. They checked with CPD physical abuse, the physical abuse unit, and were told that they did not have probable cause for an arrest. The DIG found that their actions in utilizing the school counselors were appropriate, and that the officers never said that the children, that one of the children was a problem child. So with respect to both allegations, the Inspector General found or concluded that the allegations were unfounded. We agreed.
If I could interject just briefly.
Sure.
We did just receive notice, thank you, Deputy Blunt, that city employees are dismissing at 3:30. So we will shoot for, to the extent possible, a 3:30 dismissal of us as well, if not earlier. Go
We
ahead.
have a motion for 3 o'clock on the floor.
I'm just saying to you all, I would like to not go beyond 3:30 if we can manage it.
All right, Madam Chair, we appreciate it.
So we agreed with the Inspector General's finding on case number 2023-1807. This is case number 2023-1808. The complainant alleged misconduct due to a failure of the officers to arrest the paternal grandfather of the grandchildren, of this woman's grandchildren, for alleged assault. There were conflicting accounts of the cause of violence between the two of them, including an allegation that the complainant threw the grandfather's property out of the house, that she and her son attacked him. The officers said that due to conflicting accounts, there was no probable cause to arrest the grandfather. These were two people who were not married, but shared common grandchildren. And so there were, in reading over the report, there was conflicting accounts, and the Inspector General found that the two officers involved were exonerated regarding the charge of misconduct because these two officers failed to make an arrest of the grandfather. In our review of the complaint, we agreed with the Inspector General's finding of exoneration with regard to both officers. And this is case number 1855. The complainant alleged that the officer was guilty of misconduct due to racial bias for citing her son in an accident for failing to control his vehicle. This was a car accident. There was some evidence of a failure to control. However, as the officer investigated further, he discovered via witness that the complainant's son likely was hit by another vehicle. So he withdrew the citation of failure to control. There was no evidence of racial bias in the initial citation, and the Inspector General concluded that the allegation was therefore unfounded with respect to the allegation of racial bias. We agreed. That's case number 2023-1855. This is case number 2023-1914. The complainant alleged that a CPD detective was rude and pushy when the complainant could not provide financial transactions information for a missing person due to privacy laws, saying in one instance, this detective said, "Well, their life is in your hands." The detective, in response, that this was a missing persons complaint, the detective had gone to the bank seeking information about whether the missing person had been in the bank. The detective admitted that he said to this bank employee that there was a high risk that in a missing person situation that such situations do not end well. There was no evidence that he was rude or pushy, or that he tried to force the complainant to violate financial transactions policy. He said he was not seeking financial information, but rather was simply trying to discover whether the missing person had been in the bank. This is another case in which there was a real paucity of evidence. There was no body-worn camera evidence because the alleged offender was a detective and is not required to have a body-worn camera. So it would have been helpful in a situation like this where we have two conflicting stories to have BWC evidence, but that is now required by Columbus Police policy. As a result of the conflict in testimonies, the DIG concluded that the allegations of misconduct were unfounded since they couldn't tip the scales against the detective, and we agreed with their finding. So let me just review. We have I move to accept the Inspector General's findings in case number 1506, 1668, 1807, 1808, 1855, and 1914.
So we've got a first and second. Do you want to also make a motion on?
And then I was going, do you want me to do it now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, and then I make a second motion to accept the Inspector General's recommendation of a finding of misconduct in case number, let's see, where was that?
68. Should be 1668.
1668? In case number 1668, that there was an additional allegation raised by the Inspector General of profanity that did violate CPD policy in case number 1668.
Can I have a second on that motion?
Second.
All right, we've got motions open on all of those cases, plus the additional. All in favor, or first, any other questions or discussion? No. All in favor of accepting, please raise your hands. All right, motions carry. Thank you, Board Member Nathan. All right, Let's see, let's go to subcommittee number 3, and then we'll finish up with Mr. Strickland's committee.
All right. We'll start with case number 2023-1545. On October 10th, 2023, the complainant filed a complaint alleging misconduct by a CPD officer. The complainant alleged that the officer had been in contact with an individual who has or had active warrants for domestic violence, and that the officer knew this and did not turn in this person. The DIG investigation consisted of a referral from the Columbus Division of the Internal Affairs Bureau, a review of the completed CPD IAB investigation in regards to this complaint, an interview with the complainant after a review of this completed investigation. When follow-up was conducted with the complainant by DIG, she wished to withdraw the complaint that she originally made with the DIG after the outcome of the IAB investigation found that the officer did not do what the complainant alleged. Therefore, it is recommended that this allegation be closed as withdrawn. Our review committee reviewed this and agrees with the Inspector General. And I'll also wait for the motion after my next two. Number 2, any questions? Sorry. All right, so that was withdrawn. Number 2023-1759, November 20th, 2023, the City of Columbus Inspector General received a complaint alleging use of force by CPD officers. The complainant alleged, number 1, the officer ripped me out of the door and threw me to the ground. Number 2, he was detained, he indicated that he was detained for no reason. And number 3, another officer came and put his knee on his back, even though he was not resisting, and believes that the force used with this knee was excessive. The DIG investigated, and it consisted of a review of the body-worn camera, review of CAD, unit history, and an interview with the complainant, and also interview with the officers. The investigation revealed the officers responded to what was a sex crime in progress run with information regarding a potential victim. The initial officer made contact with the complainant. However, the complainant did not allow the officer access to ensure the identified victim was okay. Therefore, the officer removed the complainant from the door and detained him. As officers arrived on the scene to assist, another officer replaced the initial officer to watch the detained complainant to allow the initial officer to speak to the alleged victim. The investigation revealed that the officer's actions did not occur as the complainant reported to the DIG, and the officer's actions were supported by CPD policy and procedure. The Columbus DIG recommends that all of these, that the 3 allegations be closed as unfounded. So our review committee reviewed this, and the DIG had reviewed all the BWC, interviewed all the officers, and everything was consistent, and we agreed with the finding of the DIG. Any questions? Okay, and then the third one, case number 2023-1788, November 27th, 2023, the DIG received a complaint alleging misconduct. The complainant alleged after being asked to leave the bar, Good Night, John Boy, by security, officers detained him without cause, and 2, went through his mobile phone without his consent. The DIG's investigation consisted of security footage from the Goodnight Bar, an interview with the complainant, and the bar's general manager. The investigation revealed that the officers were informed by Goodnight's security the complainant had been removed due potentially drugging a female patron's drink. The officers detained the complainant to question him, and they did not at any time go through his telephone. In regards to allegation number 1, it is recommended that this allegation be closed as unfounded, as the officer's actions to detain the complainant to question him was within CPD policy and procedure. And as regards to allegation number 2, it is recommended that this also be closed as unfounded, as the investigation found no evidence to substantiate the allegation that they went through his phone without his consent. We did interview, our committee did review all of this, and we found that we agreed with the Inspector General. The general manager pretty much put to rest any questions that we had as far as the cell phone, because the manager was present throughout the interview of the officers, and he did not witness any officer going through any cell phones. So as to any questions as to this particular case? So as to these 3 cases, we would move at this time, as to case number 2023-1545, 1759, 1788, we move to accept the findings of the Inspector General.
May I have a second? Second. Okay, no further questions. All in favor, please raise your hands. All right, unanimous, motions carry. Thank you.
Mag, you have 2.
Case number 2023-1812. November 29, 2023, the complainant filed a complaint with the City of Columbus Department of Inspector General alleging misconduct by a Columbus police officer. The complainant alleged he was traveling on High Street when 2 Central Ohio Transit Authority police officers approached him and almost struck his vehicle. The Columbus Division of Police allows officers to work in a special duty capacity for CODA. The complainant alleged the manner and tone of the officers was an impolite interaction. The Columbus DIG investigation consisted of a review of computer-aided dispatch information, a telephone interview with the complainant, interviews with the officers, and a review of applicable CPD directives. The investigation found no evidence to support the complaint's alleged incident occurred as alleged by the complainant. Therefore, it is recommended that the allegation be closed as unfounded. The officers stated in this incident that the complainant was the one that actually almost struck their vehicle. The officers then pulled up beside the complainant's vehicle and asked him what he was doing. One of the officers also mentioned that he was surprised that there was even a complaint because he didn't feel like they were rude to this complainant. Our committee agreed with the IG's findings, and I motion that this board agrees with the findings of unfounded complaint number 23-1812.
May I have a second?
All right. Last but not least, 2023-1900. On December 19, 2023, the complainant filed a complaint with the City of Columbus Department of Inspector General alleging misconduct by a Columbus police officer. The complaint stemmed from a call they made to the Columbus Police Department for assistance in a custody matter. The complainant alleged the officer involved was rude when he asked for their identifications and believed the officer treated her poorly during their encounter. The DIG's investigation consisted of a review of the body-worn camera footage, an interview with the complainant, and a review of Columbus Division Police CPD directives. The investigation found the officer's actions to be within policy and that the questions asked were pertinent, relevant, and not rude. Therefore, the Columbus DIG recommends the allegation against the officer be closed as unfounded. Our committee agreed with the IG's findings. This was a case where a social worker from Buckeye Ranch went to pick up a child that they were given custody of through Franklin County Court of Domestic Relations. The problem was that the officer asked for their identification. One social worker had she didn't have her driver's license, but she had her work ID. The other social worker did have her driver's license, but didn't have her work ID. Subcommittee agreed with the findings, and I motion that this board agrees with the findings of the IG of unfounded in case number 2023-1900.
May I have a second? Any questions or discussions on either of those two? Okay, we've got open motions and seconds on case numbers 23-1812, 23-1900. All in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motions carry. All right, turning it back over to Mr. Strickland.
Thank you. I still think there's I think there's a more efficient way we can do this, but I'm going to do my best. We're gonna run through 1285. This case, this is where the complainant alleged that she had an issue with a sergeant who has continuously called her and came to her residence and workplace, although she asked him to leave her alone on multiple occasions. The complainant stated she feels threatened by the sergeant's behavior. The Department of Inspector General consisted of a review of the documentation received from CPD Internal Affairs Bureau for their criminal investigation of the allegation. They also reviewed an interview with the complainant and 2 interviews with the sergeant. The investigation revealed information received via Internal Affairs Bureau and the complainant were consistent. However, the information received from the sergeant changed over the course of 2 interviews. The Internal Affairs Bureau criminal investigation revealed that from 2021 to 2023, the sergeant on multiple occasions showed up to the complainant's home and workplace. Information received also revealed the complainant had expressed to the sergeant that she wanted him to leave her alone. However, multiple attempts to contact her were still made. The sergeant's actions are a violation of CPD's directives. Therefore, it is recommended that this allegation be closed with a finding of sustained. In addition, Internal Affairs Bureau's investigation revealed that although the sergeant worked patrol in the complainant's area, he often drove specifically to the complainant's home address multiple times in a day in his CPD vehicle, and there was no evidence of any police dispatch runs to that address, and even contacted the complainant via a City of Columbus phone number. These sergeant's actions are a misuse of city property, this being a violation of CPD directives. Therefore, it is recommended that this allegation be closed with a finding of sustained. Lastly, the Columbus Department Inspector General conducted 2 interviews with the sergeant due to conflicting statements by the sergeant that did not support the evidence reviewed. The investigation revealed elements of the sergeant's statements to be untruthful, as this action is a violation of CPD directives. Therefore, it is recommended that this Department of Inspector General allegation is closed with a finding of sustained. So to recap, that is 1 allegation of first that the complainant stated that she felt threatened by the sergeant's behavior, and the investigation revealed that the sergeant on multiple occasions showed up at the complainant's home and workplace. These actions were by the sergeant are a violation of CPD Directives 101, Rules of Conduct, and CPD Directive 105, Codes of Ethics. Therefore, it's recommended that this allegation be closed with a finding of sustained. Then there are 2 additional sustained Department of Inspector General allegations. The first Department of Inspector General allegation was that the sergeant often visited the complainant's home on multiple occasions, even multiple times in one day. Also, on 1 occasion, the complainant was contacted by the sergeant for personal use via City of Columbus phone number. The sergeant's actions are a misuse of property and a violation of CPD Directive 101 Rules of Conduct and CPD Directive 102 City of Columbus Central Work Rules. Therefore, it's recommended this allegation be closed with a finding of sustained. And then there is a second Department Inspector General allegation regarding the 2 interviews that the Department Inspector General completed with the sergeant due to conflicting statements and evidence reviewed. The investigation revealed elements of the sergeant's statements to be untruthful, and this being a violation of CPD Directives 101 Rules of Conduct and CPD Directive 105 Code of Ethics. Therefore, this is a sustained Department Inspector General allegation. Our review committee agreed with the findings of the Department of Inspector General in case number 1285. Any questions or additional comments from our review committee or anybody else on the board?
Yes, I was just curious whether there was any, is there a, some sort of harassment? I mean, this sounds like stalking behavior, and so apart from unprofessional conduct, is there nothing in addition that this level of behavior would amount to?
Yeah, and to that question, there's a few paragraphs here that address some of that. So first, on August 31st, 2023, the Department Inspector General investigation was actually placed on administrative hold so that they would allow the Internal Affairs Bureau to complete a criminal investigation. And then on November 15, 2023, the Department of Inspector General was notified that the Internal Affairs Bureau had actually completed their criminal investigation and findings. And then part of that then is that the criminal investigation revealed that there were multiple reports of of the sergeant following and appearing at the complainant's residence, workplace over the years. The Internal Affairs Bureau presented their investigation case to the Franklin County felony and misdemeanor prosecutors, and the prosecutors declined the case due to no victim cooperation. Then the next paragraph goes on to say that due to the criminal statute of limitations regarding the, quote, stalking allegation, the Columbus Department Inspector General administrative investigation covered their periods of 2021 to 2023. And so part of that, the timeline of events from the administrative investigation details below contains the information that was received in the Internal Affairs Bureau's criminal investigation. But yes, in terms of other allegations that rose to the level of alleged criminal conduct that was reviewed by IAB and presented to the Franklin County felony misdemeanors prosecutors, and they declined the case due to no victim cooperation. And I don't know anything further. We don't know anything further outside of the context of this particular report for that. Any other questions or?
I guess this really can't be answered, but, it was out of statute of limitations for the misdemeanor stalking.
Well, that's not what,
Is that what you were saying there?
no.
No?
I don't think so.
Okay, so the criminal investigation did not go forth because,
That was, specifically there, the prosecutors declined the case due to no victim corroboration.
no, the victim, okay, all right.
That
What
was
did you say
there.
about the statute of limitations? Did you say something about
The
that?
statement, so basically, the criminal statute of limitation regarding the stalking allegations, due to that, the Department Inspector General investigation actually, while they covered the periods of 2021 to 2023 specifically, there were, in the Internal Affairs Bureau, there were information about the two individuals meeting each other back in 2001. And so instead of going through and doing the investigation all the way back to 2001, what the Inspector General did was included in information that was part of the timeline of events included in the Internal Affairs Bureau's criminal investigation. Is that
All right.
roughly a decent summation of it? Yeah. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I was just trying to look through this and see what the sergeant said, like what was his reasoning for being at the place. Did you all get that anywhere?
I think
Did I
that
miss
says
it?
in there that they could not, his statements were not consistent.
Right, so that's why I was trying to figure out what did he originally
I
say,
doubt
but
they're gonna put
okay.
the statement.
All right.
But I do have one other question, and I guess this is probably out of your purview. That being, I'd like to know how the chief, are they really taking this stuff serious? Especially the two allegations that you guys have sustained, in reference to this, regardless of whether they've gotten any further response from the victim, the alleged victim. Are they taking this serious? Because if he's done it to one person, in all probability, he probably did it to somebody else. So, that's, because once again, I probably won't be here when she does come here, or whoever she sends here. So these questions, so I just want to make sure that stays at the forefront too, when she does come here. How serious do we take these allegations, these findings against police officers? And I think that's what the public's looking to see too. They're really looking to see how is our police chief and her office going to handle, especially the ones that you guys have sustained.
Well, I think we're still waiting, like this case hasn't went through the process yet, but I think what we have seen is most of the cases that we have submitted where we have recommended that the case be sustained misconduct, there has been action that's taken, and it all falls within the guidelines of the collective bargaining agreement as to what they're able to do.
Yeah, I think that speaks to a broader discussion around this database in terms of knowing what has happened if a particular case, if there was a violation that was sustained and that was forwarded along to CPD, what the disposition was in terms of CPD, and then also just like whether or not there was discipline issued in a particular case. Obviously, as a board, we're going to do our best to try to keep track of that. Of course, you all are going to try to keep track of that, but that is also part of the questions, I think, with CPD is how they track those cases is also something that, these are public records. And so for folks who are curious about these cases and where they go, there's ways to get that information as well. But it's a really good point and good question. Any other comments or concerns related to this particular case? That was 1285 as a reminder. All right. Next up, we have 1670. This was a case where the complainant alleged that on October 4th, 2023, she was walking with her son to her grandmother's house when she was with her son walking to her grandmother's house when an officer approached her and slammed her to the ground on her face. Additionally, the complainant alleged that the officer put his knee on her back while she was on the ground. Also, the officer alleged during her interaction with the officers that the officers laughed at her, which was rude, and during the incident, officers questioned her son without authority. In regards to allegation 1, that the complainant was arrested, handcuffed, and escorted to a patrol car by a responding officer. While walking to the patrol car, the complainant began twisting away from the officer. The officer lost his grip on the complainant's arm, then utilized a level 1 arm bar takedown to the complainant, taken down to the ground to get the complainant under control. The investigation revealed that the force was used by an officer and the officer's actions are supported by CPD policies, procedures, and laws and were not found to be excessive. Also, the investigation revealed that the alleged allegation as described by the complainant did not occur. Therefore, it is recommended that allegation 1 be closed with a finding of unfounded. In regards to allegation 2, the officer informed the Department Inspector General while taking the complainant to the ground that his body-worn camera came off and landed within his arm's reach where the complainant was held on the ground. The officer stated he placed his knee on the complainant's arm or shoulder to hold her down while he retrieved his body-worn camera. The investigation revealed that the alleged incident occurred and the officer's actions are supported by CPD policies and/or laws and were not found to be excessive. Therefore, it is recommended that allegation 2 be closed as unfounded. Regarding allegation 3, both officers deny laughing at the complainant during their interaction with the complainant. Additionally, body-worn camera footage does not show either officer laughing during the incident. The investigation found no evidence that substantiated the complainant's allegation. Therefore, it's closed with a finding of unfounded. In regards to allegation 4, the complainant was placed in handcuffs and walked to the patrol car. One of the responding officers stood with the complainant's son, who was crying. The officer made an effort to calm the complainant's son by assuring him that his mother was all right. Both focus officers told the Department Inspector General it is standard procedure to separate the parties involved in a reported domestic violence regardless of age. The investigation revealed the incident happened and the officer's actions are supported by CBD policies, procedures, and laws, and therefore it is recommended that allegation 4 be closed with a finding of exonerated in this particular case. Any comments or questions about this? This is a rather lengthy case talking about the use of force and some other aspects of this case. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay. We've had a number of, I think we've talked about these use of force cases and making the determination of what rises to a particular level. One of the questions, not particularly for you to answer at this time, but just more generally how the investigators review these incidents, how they make determinations based on kind of the various matrix of use of force, is just something that I think I know there's a lot of questions that come up when it comes to use of force cases, which determine at what level and what is determined as violating a particular case. In this one, it was a level 1 armbar takedown, and it was not determined to violate policies and procedures. And again, while there was a summary there, the case itself goes into much more detail in terms of the interview with the officer saying that he did not witness any injuries and that at the time the complainant did not mention any injuries or ask for a medic in this particular case. And then it goes into much more detail in terms of some of the conversations here. As it relates to the specific allegations, our investigation review committee agreed with the findings of the Inspector General for case number 1670. All right. Any comments, questions, concerns? Great. This is case number 17. Okay, maybe not. Is it 36 or? Yeah. Okay.
36.
There it is. Thank you. Appreciate it. I got to do better at this. All right, 1736. This is where the complaint alleged that Columbus police officer caused a disruption by being loud at a Columbus Metropolitan Library. The complainant alleged that the Columbus police officer referred to library security officers as liars and referred to the library security officers as, quote, top flight security of the world, end quote, which the security officers expressed they felt was rude. And then there's a footnote that says the, quote, top flight security of the world, end quote, statement is from the movie, quote, Friday After Next, and references incompetent security guards in the movie. Finally, the complainant alleged that the Columbus police officer failed to provide her name and badge number when asked to do so. After a review of the statements, interviews of the witnesses, and a review of the library security camera footage, the Department Inspector General did not interview the complainant because he was not present when the incident took place and was provided details of the incident from the library employees after the incident occurred. After review of the evidence, the investigation found no evidence to substantiate the allegation that the officer caused a disruption by being loud at the library. Therefore, that is closed as unfounded. After review, the investigation found insufficient evidence to determine if the officer referred to the library security officers as liars. Therefore, it is recommended the allegation 2 be closed as not sustained / inconclusive based on conflicting statements from the parties involved and lack of evidence. The investigation did find that the officer reviewed referred to the library security officers as, quote, top flight security of the world, end quote. Therefore, it is recommended that the allegation 3 be closed as sustained. After review, the investigation found the officer failed to provide her name and badge number when asked to do so. That's also found as sustained in that particular case. Just a quick recap. Allegations 1 regarding the disruption of being too loud is unfounded. Allegation 2 regarding detective saying that the library security officers were liars was also unfounded. It was unfounded. I think it was referred to as not inclusive in this particular cases. And then allegation 3 and 4. So 3 is the top flight security comment is sustained, and 4 is the not providing name and badge number is also sustained for this allegation. And our subcommittee agreed, or review committee agreed with the findings. Any questions?
Yeah, what was the incident that led to the officers being present in the library to begin with?
It's a great question. There was something about one man assaulting another person in front of the library, and then a detective came in. One of the detectives was actually working as a plainclothes officer in an unmarked car. And the detective stated she stopped and visited the library that day to speak to the special duty officer that was working there. And the detective interacted with the library security officers in front of the library and asked why they didn't do anything about one man who was allegedly assaulting another in front of the library. And then that's where the detective made comments about the security officers. And then she was trying to get to the special duty officer. So it's not entirely clear exactly what happened here in terms of how the lead up occurred. I don't know if any other questions or comments from folks? Great. All right. Next is now. It is 1778. This is a complainant reported he was in an accident on November 4th, 2023. The crash report for the accident was not accurate because the officer did not interview the witness. The investigation found no evidence of any witness at the scene of the accident, or that the officer refused or failed to interview any witness to the accident, as there were no witnesses to interview. Therefore, it is recommended that allegation be closed as unfounded. Our subcommittee or review committee agreed with the findings from the Department of Inspector General in case number 1778. Not much further discussion in terms of our board's pretty straightforward on that one. 1848. This is where the complainant alleged a sex trafficking investigator asked her how to conduct his investigation and questioned her mental health rather than doing the investigation into her being trafficked. The investigation consisted of an interview with the complainant and the sergeant. The investigation revealed the sergeant did question the complainant's mental health as there were concerns due to some of the details of their conversation. Both parties' statements regarding the line of questioning contradicted one another. As the conversation took place via phone, the Department Inspector General was not able to gather additional evidence to corroborate either statement because the conversation was not recorded. Therefore, the Department Inspector General is not able to confirm the details of either party's statements and has recommended this allegation be closed as not sustained / inconclusive. And I know maybe one of our review committee members had thoughts in terms of that the phrasing around not sustained and conclusive. Just want to give time if there's any additional questions or comments here for the not sustained.
I was just wondering, when did we come up with that particular decision that could be made, because we had never seen it before on any of the other cases. So what brought about that particular way for the investigator to find a conclusion there?
If you look towards the back, always attached to the report, the last page, we have all of the different findings there. Oh, yeah.
But what
So,
I'm saying is, before these particular cases, I had never seen that as one of the ones that they could choose from, and when they investigate a case. So that's why, it's just wanted to know that when did you guys come up with that particular way that they could have a finding?
so one of the things that when we do non-sustained inconclusive, a lot of it comes not just from the verbal interview between the two. It also comes from if we're able to pull documents and there's not enough documents to even substantiate if the incident even occurred. So when you don't have enough to even weigh one or the other, we just will go inconclusive because we can't really substantiate it either occurred or didn't occur. So in this case, we just didn't have enough
I wanted to bring the question up.
No, thanks, appreciate that. The only other comment I'd say in this particular case is just trying to get a sense of what the process is handling these particular situations where there's an allegation of sex trafficking and the particular line of questioning. So it was determined as not sustained / inconclusive. There was a question about the mental health. And the investigation reviewed that there were questions as there were some concerns due to the details of their conversation. However, just trying to get a sense of how that situation was handled, while it may not be a violation, rise to the level of a violation, just want to make note of getting insight on that process of how CPD handles those particular incidents in those sensitive situations. But our review committee agreed with the findings. Ultimately, it was not sustained and conclusive for this particular case as a result of not having the evidence to decide otherwise. Any other comments or questions regarding this case? And this is again another case that has a little bit of a detail in terms of the substance of the conversation. Okay. Next up, we have 1901. If I can flip to it. Okay. This was a complainant alleged a Columbus police officer was parked in her driveway during an incident unrelated to her house. The complainant alleged that an officer drove a cruiser directly through her lawn to move their vehicle. Department Inspector General investigation consisted of a review of the doorbell footage and communication, and the computer-aided dispatch and body-worn camera footage and a set of other pieces of evidence here. And the investigation revealed the officer in question was not in violation of any policy or procedure in regards to the allegation. The officer was actively engaged on a run involving a person with a gun. The officer's actions were relevant to him responding to the circumstances of the police run as it was taking place. Therefore, it is recommended the allegation against the officer driving through the complainant's lawn be closed as exonerated, as the officer was not driving recklessly at the time of the incident. And our review committee agreed with the findings of this particular, or agree with the Department Inspector General of the finding of exonerated. I do think there's a broader, policy or procedure insight that, we can get additional insight on in terms of what happens during chases and how that impacts other people that are not, the subject of the particular chase. But as it relates to this particular case, they were found within policy and or procedure. And so our review committee, any comments, questions, discussions on that or any other quick cases? Our review committee would make a motion that we accept the Department Inspector General's findings and case numbers, all the ones that I just listed there, 1285, 1670, 1736, 1778, 1848, and 1901. Can I get a second? All right. I think this is.
And then you have two other motions, right? Under case number 1285.
Is it the
To adjust-
DIG and
yep.
Okay. I'll make those motions as well. I hope we can
Okay.
combine them in the future. I'll make an additional motion to sustain Department Inspector General allegations of sustain for case number 1285. Can I get a second for that?
Yep. All right, all in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? All right, motions carry. Thank you all. I did take note of the additional issues for discussion, but we will put that into our next meeting. Have a safe evening. Would anyone like to motion to adjourn?
So moved.
May I have a second? Second. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.